We are live, and I wanted to say thank you so much to both Leanne and Lisa for being here tonight and taking time out of your evening. It is so much appreciated. You are both part of the Canadian Drowning Prevention Coalition for Canada. This is just an incredible group that does such amazing work with safety, working with the Department of Transportation, and truly has some of the most incredible information and is lobbying for child safety all over the country. And I am just so grateful that you are both here and willing to give some information for these parents who just want to keep protecting their kids and make sure that everybody's okay and prevent some of these needless things that happen and are beyond devastating. So thank you both so much. I am going to let you introduce yourselves just so I don't mess it up. But there's a lot of titles because you're both such accomplished people. But again, thank you very much for being here. And for anybody who is tuning in and is watching, just so you know, there will be a replay available if you can't make the whole thing, but I do encourage you to stick around. If you have any questions at all, please comment on here. We will be able to hopefully answer some of them, but leave them there and we will make sure that you get the answers at the end of it if not. All right, so I will turn it over to you. And again, thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us. Leanne, did you want to go first with your intro and then I'll jump in after?
Sure. So my name is Leanne Boisvert. I'm the Trauma and Injury Prevention Coordinator at the Children's Hospital in Ottawa. So the name of the hospital is CHIO. And I am also the team lead for the technical working group for children 1 to 4 of the Canadian Drowning Prevention Coalition. I also sit on our local Drowning Prevention Coalition, the Ottawa Drowning Prevention Coalition. And essentially both groups are we're working to get messaging out to keep kids safe around water. And to prevent drowning as much as we possibly can.
Lots of great stuff happening with the coalition. My name is Lisa Hanson-Willette. I wear many hats, but for this particular conversation, I'll wear the hat of the project manager for the Canadian Drowning Prevention Coalition. I coordinate and support the Canadian Drowning Prevention Plan. We have the 7th edition coming out late next week, so you can check it out and receive or download your free copy through www.cdpcoalition.ca, so you can check that out. It has all kinds of neat tips and tricks in there and some really great advice as we move forward. I connect with people from coast to coast to coast, and we also have some global connections as well, which is very exciting to hear and to know what's happening around the globe. For Canada, we focus on 8 key areas, and one of which is, of course, children 1 to 4. And we do that quite intentionally, although we're certainly not leaving out our 0 to 12 months, but we know that they're usually in mom, dad, or another guardian's arms. But we will touch on that, won't we, Leanne?
We sure will.
Yeah, we're going to cover it all. So yeah, we're really looking forward to chatting with all of you tonight. Please do send your questions in to Lara and we'll be happy to answer them. If, of course, you come up with questions after and you want to contact the coalition directly, feel free to reach out. The email address is info@cdpcoalition.ca. So you can reach me anytime there and I'd be happy to answer your questions. So Lara, where would you like to go? Should we just start in with our presentation and talk?
I think that sounds awesome. You guys have such amazing information that is coming this way tonight. So I'm just so excited about it. It's so necessary for people to understand, and especially for the new parents where you mentioned tub safety. People just don't think of that one either. So
we're going to try to cover the entire gamut. So I'm going to disappear with my video and bring a presentation on for all of you. And then if I need to come back, perhaps, Larry, you'll need to give me a reminder to bring my video back on when I get rid of this presentation, but we'll see how we roll. All right, give it a second here, and we should be okay. Are you seeing this, Lara?
Yes, we're good to go.
Excellent, excellent. So we just titled this presentation, Canadian Drowning Prevention Coalition presents Child Drowning Prevention: What You Need to Know. So we're just going to review some of the basics. We'll give you some information as we go through. There's lots more information, and if you're a researcher or you're a numbers person like we are, you can check out in the upcoming 7th edition. The 6th edition is currently on the coalition website, and you can get some of that background information. These statistics have been gathered now for close to 25 years. So we have all kinds of fatality data, which is sad, but we do have it as our evidence base for everything that we do. So let's just skip on to our first slide. And we're just going to keep things really light. Looking at 4 different areas. So bathtubs and toilets. Yes, you read that right. It's toilets. We have our top heavy toddlers. We have backyard pools. We have open water. Open water would consist of lakes, rivers, streams, brooks, any kind of body of water that could be in your yard or in your area, something that could be even as shallow as 1 to 2 inches. It doesn't take very much. We're going to be talking about that as well. And then, of course, recreational boating. And so there's some connections there as well. And there's a really great picture of Leanne and her family in that photo. So Leanne, let's start with bathtubs and toilets.
So this is one area that my group and I are working very hard on. And we've identified that this education usually starts before parents become parents, right? I think I'm going back to when I became a mom in 2018, and you do the first bath in the hospital. And it is the most nerve-wracking thing you will ever do, because you have this tiny little squishy little baby that's kind of slipping through your fingers, and you're kind of just learning how to manipulate them. And anyways, so I think bathtub safety starts from birth. I think it's just really important for parents to know that anytime you are near a tub or a toilet with any child of any age, that they need to be supervised. So these drownings often happen in unsupervised settings. So the parents step away from the tub. And it often happens when toddlers get a little bit more mobile and a little bit more independent, and they're able to sit up or stand up in the tub and play with their toys, where parents will step away to get the phone or put some laundry away. So essentially our messaging to parents is really, anytime there's a child in the bathtub, you are to stand beside the child and have them within your arm's reach. And just to make sure that you keep the water levels low. They don't need a full bathtub of water for a bath. There's also other bathtub safety stuff, like just make sure you're checking the temperature so the temperature is not too warm for their skin. But I think the main message from us for bathtub safety is just always have a parent supervision, but a parent supervision that is actually undistracted. We live in an age of technology where we have smart watches and smartphones that are always going off when we receive emails and text messages and alarms for everything and anything. So it's just really to keep those electronics away from the bathtub, to let the phone ring. And if you are going to go and out of the room, to bring the child with you out of the bathtub at no matter what age. So like I said before, usually the drownings that we do see, and I'm sure Lara's seen them working in the emergency department, I've seen them, they are heartbreaking. The parents usually just turn their head or step away for not even a minute. And it's something that is so tragic that can be avoided. So really, always stay within arm's reach, undistracted, and your child should be safe in the bathtub.
And that's the key message really from the coalition, is to ensure that it's always consistent, uninterrupted supervision. And that, as Leanne said, it's so easy to have that happen. And, it just takes a moment. We're not playing a blame game here at all this evening. We're here to inform. We're here to offer information, so that you can take this and make this part of your everyday routine. And water is not something we often think about as a danger, but it is all around us, as we're going to continue through the conversation tonight. And we'll repeat several messages quite on purpose, but that's all good. Let's swing to backyard pools. And backyard pools, one of our key messages here is four-sided fencing. And so this is really important. Again, uninterrupted, vigilant, consistent supervision around pools because they're really tricky and kids gain access really quickly. I do have a story to share, but I'll let Leanne take this one. And then perhaps if we have some time, I'll share my not so happy story about that one.
And so I think, Lisa, for this picture, because I think a picture says 1,000 words, is the children, especially in the age group that we're focusing on in 1 to 4, is they love colorful things and they do not see danger. So you see the ball floating on the water there. And I think it's just a really important message to say that kids will go where danger is without knowing that it's danger. So our approach for backyard swimming pools is really to create that layered approach so that kids can't access the pool. So for times when you guys are not swimming, or if you guys have a backyard pool, to make sure that there are multiple layers to keep that toddler or that young child from accessing the pool. And Lisa and I are going to touch base on a lot of technology that exists, but there are locks for the doors. Some people use like locks that exist at the top of the doors so that the children can't reach up to them, alarms for the doors so that once the child opens the door, the alarm sounds and the parents are aware that the child has left the house to go into the backyard area. There has been a very, very big Canadian-wide push for four-sided fencing around pools. And we're seeing it more and more now when people are installing pools, that they're installing pools that are a little bit further away from the house and actually have that fourth-sided fence. So the 3 sides that close off the backyard, but also have that gate that closes them access to the pool. All gates that lead to the pools should be self-latching, self-locking, so that kids are unable to. And if you do have creative kids, which I know toddlers and young children can get, they learn to open locks and they learn. So to have awareness of what your child is capable of. And if they are capable of unlatching that door, maybe try and get access to something that they can not open on themselves. As for while you guys are enjoying the pool, we're not saying don't enjoy the pool, but pool is a great area. Kids learn to swim, it's a big part of their development. And we actually encourage parents to expose their children to water and get comfortable around water so that if they do fall in the water, they know what to do to get themselves to safety as they start having that cognitive awareness of how to navigate in water. We encourage parents to expose and to take swimming lessons, to be in the pool with their children so that the children aren't scared. But if you guys are around a pool with any children of any age, really, is to just have that one adult that is the supervisor. So we have programs around Canada through Life Saving Society and other branches of aquatics that encourage that one person has a whistle and a badge. And when they are wearing that whistle and that badge, they are the lifeguard. And they are responsible for keeping eyes on the water and eyes on all of the children who are in the water. And if that person decides to go grab a beverage or grab a snack, they take the lanyard and they assign it to someone else. That way, you know, there's always one adult who is undistracted and is always paying attention to the surroundings of the pool. So those are just some quick messages. Like, I grew up around a pool. We had a neighbor who had a pool, and it was kind of like an open door policy, but the rules were no yelling, no running around. And if you guys are in the pool, an adult has to supervise you at all times. And I think that's the message here, is that water can be fun for kids, but we just have to do it safely, because it takes no time for them to fall into the pool. Someone doesn't notice, and then it's too little too late. So
yeah, and it does just take a few seconds. And drowning, we often think about drowning as something that we'd see or produced by Hollywood. And as a lifeguard and lifeguard trainer and examiner for, gosh, I'm going to date myself here, 30 years, it's not like that at all. It is a very quiet thing that happens, and it is very easy for a child to slip under, especially when we're having fun, because when we're out with our kids and we do want to have fun with our kids and we want to be active, but we're active at the same time. And we could be chatting with another child, we could be chatting with another adult, and it takes that brief second. So again, we come back to that key message, which is consistent, uninterrupted supervision. So as Leanne said, have one of the adults, they can wear a lanyard, an on-guard program. There's all kinds of other things that are out there, but just have that designated person that does not answer a phone, that does not read a book, that does not talk to anybody. They're the supervisor at that moment, and it works really well. It even works in organized swimming lesson environments. For example, there are some facilities, municipal and private, across the country, and we've heard that even though there's a lifeguard on duty and a swimming instructor, certified swimming instructor in the pool, parents for each class they're on a rotating schedule, and one parent is standing. They're not on their phone, they're not reading a book, but they're actually providing a third layer of protection. And so this is one of the directions that the coalition's really pushing for, and you're going to find this in the upcoming 7th edition, that yes, you have the instructor in the pool, and so that instructor is to keep everyone in front of them so that they can see, but things happen and toddlers move quickly, even in the water. You got 3 or 4-year-olds, they're all over the place. But even the older kids as well can go, and they can pretend that they're having fun and they can goof off a little bit, but things can happen. The lifeguard is your second layer, but mom or dad, parent, guardian can be on that deck as well, or even in an observation area, and they can communicate because you have a different bird's eye view. So working together in multiple layers, be it at home or in a supervised setting, works best. And so engaging each of those layers is what's going to be key to the safety of our kids. Just coming back to the backyard pool just for a sec too, because Leanne mentioned all kinds of great pieces of technology, and we're just moving into this realm and this understanding of things that are available, and the prices are coming down too, which I think is interesting. We still don't have a lot of information to confirm, and we're all about evidence-based pieces with the coalition, to confirm that a lot of these pieces truly do prevent drowning. But we do have things accessible to us as parents, and I'm a parent, but I have 2 teens, and that's a whole other ballgame with safety around water. That'll be a different conversation for another time, Lara. But there are watches and wristbands and things that can be on the person that can sound an alarm if you're not moving within the water or you go too deep. There can be alarms on gates. There can be cameras. There can be all kinds of things that send a message to your phone or to your own watch. It's absolutely amazing, the technology that's available. But not only do we want to think about the young children in our own homes, or the children of any age in our own homes, we also need to think about those around us in our neighborhood. Because ultimately, when we own a pool, we're now responsible. We have that level of responsibility, and it does not matter whether you've allowed them to have access or not. If someone accesses your pool, then you're liable. So that's something else you really want to look at and really think about in terms of protection, to make sure that you have all those pieces. Because while legislation for pools exists in some communities, municipalities, it's not consistent across the country. So again, it's pool legislation, especially backyard pool legislation, is inconsistent from coast to coast to coast. In our region, there's absolutely no legislation here in New Brunswick, for example, whereas Ottawa, you have lots of layers of protection there and bylaws that have to be upheld to. In some municipalities, such as Fredericton, there are different pieces that are in place for bylaws as well if you're owning a pool. But make sure that you can check that out, know your area. We're really pushing, the coalition is really pushing for consistent pool legislation and guidelines going across this country. It makes it easier. We are a mobile society, and we do move. We don't always stay in the same spot. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to point out as well. And then why don't we shift to open water? Because this is, wow, it's all around us in Canada.
Yeah, that we are blessed with a beautiful country that has plenty of waterways, and it permits us to do a lot of activities. Fishing, and I know my daughter's favorite activity right now is when we go to the cottage, she loves to throw rocks in the water. And basically the idea for open water is that you don't know how deep it is, you don't know how fast they can go in, you don't know what type of current it is. So we always stay with the same messaging of, if you have a child, who is not a strong swimmer, which our age group that we're focusing on aren't, is just to always have them within arm's reach, so that if they do lean forward a little bit too much or slip in because you're on a bank of rocks, or any kind of little thing that like they trip and fall in, that you're able to scoop them up right away. And so we always say just to be vigilant, and to be aware of your surroundings. I know that we have a family cottage. My husband's parents have a cottage, and one of our rules is anytime the kids go past a certain point at the cottage, they have to have their life jackets on. It's a non-negotiable, and that is something that all the kids know when they go up to the cottage. Is if you go within a certain distance of water, whether there's adult supervision or not, you have your life jacket on. Because it is a little river, there is a current that does pick up. And unfortunately, where that cottage is, there has been drownings of young infants and toddlers just falling into the water and being taken by the current. So always have a well-fitted life jacket on, and then have a parents within arm's reach, so that if you are on the dock or if you are on a rock embankment, that if the kids do slip or trip or fall in, that you're able, one, to jump in after them, and two, that they'll float, so that that'll permit them. And most life jackets that kids have do make them their head surface. So what happens is that there's a certain amount of buoyancy in those life jackets that bring them for their weight up and turn them top facing, so that their face faces up and then they're not face down in the water. So just to inform yourself on really what is a proper fitting life jacket for your child. Make sure that it's tied properly and that all the straps are tied, and that you are still within arm's reach regardless of them wearing a life jacket or not.
Absolutely. And a couple of key points in all of that to fit a life jacket properly on a child, and goodness knows they grow very quickly, those kids. If we think about the shoes and all their shoe sizes and how quickly they go through those, life jackets aren't going to be much different going from summer to summer when they've gone through big growth spurts over the course of the winter and the spring. So if you're putting a PFD, which is a personal flotation device, which means there's flotation all around it, and that's usually what you see. So if you're looking and watching, say at a formal swimming lesson in a lifeguarded pool, most of the kids are wearing PFDs, and they should have a little flap behind their head, ideally. All right. There's also life jackets. Life jackets are usually behind the head and in the front of the body, so they're very, very thick. But if you're looking at a PFD specifically, and you want to know if it's fitting your child properly, you want to ensure that it's put on, so their arms go through. You're going to zip it up. You're going to put the clip on, and you're going to grab the PFD above the child's shoulder. So your hands, so your 4 fingers, your palms are going to face up. Slide those fingers in between the shoulder and the top of that PFD and the inside of it, and just pull up lightly. If that PFD comes up above the child's ears, that PFD is too big. So you want to make sure that it's just coming up a little bit, but not too much. The same holds true if you can't zip it up, then of course it's too small and it's time to upgrade to that next size. You want to ensure that it fits properly, because it can inhibit breathing in terms of how they're going to be moving. If they're stuck, we don't know what's going to be happening. And the idea is to keep them on top of the water, to buy them time and ability to breathe, because if they can't breathe in the water, and to buy us time to get to them. And that being said, when we're at a cottage, open water, if you're going to be around open water with your kids, and things can happen quickly, don't go in after your kids if you don't have something that can keep yourself safe. So what we're seeing now around the world is an increase in rescuer drownings. Sometimes, so someone has gone in to rescue a child, and they've gone in, and sometimes they've been successful in having the child rescued or saving the child, but they themselves end up drowning. The same can hold true where they haven't been successful in terms of saving the child, and they've both drowned. And so you want to make sure that you yourself are safe. So if you're going to be down with kids, you can have a PFD or a life jacket that fits you. You can grab this. You can wear it when you go in if you need to help. You could have a rowboat. You could have floating pool noodles so that you could reach. There's all kinds of different and safe options for you, because the last thing you want to do is have someone grab you in the water if you can't touch, or even if you can barely touch. Okay, so if you think that and if there's any current at all, that can knock you off balance. So you want to be very, very careful. So if you have a reaching assist, so your pool noodle or a jacket or something that they can grab onto to pull them in, even better. The farther away from somebody you are, the safer it's going to be. The closer you are, the greater risk you have. So just keeping those things in mind. There will be some things rolling out in the future in terms of life-saving parental suggestions and guidance in terms of what to do. But they're just not quite ready. But if you are interested in pursuing something like that, you can certainly go and take a bronze medallion course, which talks about self-rescue and the rescue of others at a very basic level. And you can just check that out at one of your local facilities. So those were just a couple of pieces that I wanted to point out there. And Leanne, let's talk about recreational boating because, well, it's getting cold now, but it was a really great season for boating with the weather so hot.
Yes, it was a great boating season. I think that people seeing in the state that we're in with the pandemic, we're trying to get out and get some fresh air and change their ideas and not be cooped up in the house. And we had beautiful weather as well. So I think people really took the opportunity to actually get out on the water and do some boating and do some fishing and some tubing and all sorts of other aquatic activities in open waters. And that picture that you guys see there is my daughter, myself, and my husband, just on like a very small pleasure craft, because my daughter doesn't like to go fast. But we figure we're going to get her used to things so that when she is a little bit older, that she still has some healthy fear and knows that she has to be safe in a boat. And one of the main things that we're seeing is that parents need to lead by example. So I cannot tell you how many times, and I think Lisa and Lara could probably resonate, and probably all of you at home, you go out on a boat and the children are wearing life jackets, but the parents are not. And so I feel like this is something that if you wear it, they do monkey see, monkey do. They want to be like us. They want to do what we're doing. And I feel that that is the best way to get them to wear their life jackets and their PFDs. So we have seen a lot of drownings this summer on large waterways because of recreational boating for that exact reason, is that not so much in the younger children because they're the ones wearing the life jackets, but in the adults and the older kids that are not wearing life jackets. Because right now in legislation, and one of our members of the coalition is fighting very strong for a change in life jackets to be mandatory on boats for children under 14 years of age. But they should be mandatory for everybody. So that's hopefully our end goal. Mm-hmm. But just to lead by example, to wear proper fitting PFD and to have the kids wearing them. Another thing, especially for new parents, is that they do not make Transport Canada approved life jackets for children under 9 kilos. So children who are under 9 kilos who cannot have a proper fitting PFD should not be on boats. And as much as we want to take them out on the water, we have to consider their safety, and putting them in an ill-fitting PFD does not keep them safe. So unfortunately, that's something that we are recommending, is that children who do not have a proper fitting PFD do not go out on pleasure crafts until they are able to wear a proper PFD.
Right, and then the safety, we see a lot that parents are holding their young children without a properly fitting PFD. And we often believe that we have control of that situation. And as Leanne alluded, there has been an increase, a significant surge in drownings, fatal drownings, and non-fatals. We're gathering that data and we're figuring out how best to do that. But in terms of fatalities, the last thing you want to have happen, it is so much better to have a rescue than a recovery. And what we mean by that is your life jacket, your PFD, each person that is wearing that on the boat, and should an accident happen, you could hit a wake, you could hit a rock, something could malfunction, any number of things. There could be a storm that comes out of nowhere. But we are seeing an upsurge in drownings. And this is something that's very important. It is wearing that PFD, wearing that life jacket, by time to get to you, to get to your child. And if you're not wearing a life jacket and your child is, and something should happen, I'm not trying to create fear, but I really want you to think about what happens with that child if they can't find you. So the child is floating on that water by themselves, and it's very important that they have you there. So let's buy some time, wear the life jacket, wear a PFD, make sure that everyone's wearing something that is proper, because it is so much easier to do a rescue mission than to do a recovery mission. And, Leanne alluded to Life Jackets for Life, one of our coalition stakeholders, and Kara McNulty, her son, unfortunately drowned a couple of Septembers ago, so in 2018. And Josh was not wearing his life jacket, unfortunately, and it took several days to recover his body. And so we don't want to be in that position. We want to ensure that everyone is safe. So again, wearing that life jacket, it's an easy habit to start, and it's one that we really need to emphasize. Yes, legislation states we need to have one life jacket on board for each person. It does not stipulate that those life jackets need to be worn. But if you've ever tried to locate those life jackets when you need them in an emergency quickly, or to be able to put those life jackets on when you are in heavy waves, you will know that that is not an easy feat to do, especially to ensure that each one is properly fitted to each body type that is on that boat. So please wear those life jackets. That is another big message from us. And the other piece that I wanted to, that came to mind when we were talking about open water is, yes, we're talking about our little ones today and having things properly fitted. But regardless of swimming ability, anyone of any swimming ability can drown. So the stronger swimmers, a lot of people think that the stronger swimming capability, the stronger your swimming skills, the less likely it is that you're going to drown. To some extent, you're able to get, you may have greater endurance, or you may be able to get from point A to point B, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to drown. So ensure that you're going to be behaving in a safe manner. You're going to be swimming with buddies. You're going to know, someone's going to know where you are, and follow all those safety precautions, not simply when the kids are young, but when they're older as well. As I mentioned, I have 2 teens, and so the rules are a little bit different. And one of my teens is male, so of course we have greater risk taking behavior at that age and stage. So as we're parents, we're always catching up. It's like those shoe sizes, right? They're always changing. And so our mindsets also need to change, and our education and level of understanding needs to. So tapping into things like the Canadian Drowning Prevention Plan when we're looking at safety issues around water is going to be really important. So we're going to hone in again a little bit on the bathtub safety. There's some numbers here, and we really thank the Life Saving Society Canada for sharing this. They have some really great documentation out using infographics, which are pictures, sharing some statistics. And so we can see where people around Canada, these are Canadian statistics in terms of where people would drown most often. And so that we know the exact numbers. We can look 12% in bathtubs. We've got 9% in pools, 28% in river, and 34% in lakes, ponds, with 7% in the ocean. 10% other, and that could be a really mixed bag of different things happening. There's fewer than 1% of drownings actually happen in lifeguarded supervised settings. And so this is good. But again, it's a layer of protection. So imagine if we were all working together, because lifeguards cover a large area. Their zones are massive, and if there's several on duty on a beach, they're going to be overlapping those zones and they're scanning, but they're covering everyone off. If as a parent, we are there adding that extra layer of protection for our own kids, imagine we can get that number down to 0. If we work hard enough, we can certainly do it, and it's not a great deal to ask. The same thing with those bathtub numbers. We can actually drop that number. It comes down to parent supervision, guardian supervision. So again, consistent, uninterrupted supervision by a responsible adult. And so quite often we'll share or need help from another child in the house. And I get it. totally get it. But to have that vigilance on the part of a responsible adult is really important. Anything can happen. And Lara, you teach CPR training as well, and so we're going to be bringing that up here shortly. But having that ability is very important should something happen. So again, multi-layered approach. We talked about vigilance, parent, guardian, teacher, supervisor, within arm's reach, and we truly mean within arm's reach, because toddlers, they move. If they're on land, they don't stop moving. In the water, I can attest many years of teaching swimming lessons. They don't stop moving in water either. And if they're in the water or jump in the water quickly without a life jacket on, they will sink to the bottom. They don't instantly panic. They look up at you with big eyes, and sometimes they have a grin, and sometimes they realize they're in trouble, but they're still moving. And so we, even as a lifeguard, we need to be really careful how we enter to help rescue those little busy people, because we don't want to scare them either and have them take in a big gasp of water. So that's not so good. Barriers, in-house baby gates, locks, high up. And, a story that I mentioned earlier and alluded to earlier, and Leanne was kind enough to share that toddlers are very creative. If they want to get out, they can get out. And unfortunately, one of our other stakeholders is a mom whose 4-year-old son drowned in their backyard pool. She had stepped out of the room in the house. Everything was locked. Stepped out of the room. Okay, preparing a bath, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. But earlier on in the day, he wanted to fill a water balloon. And the answer was no. And so in that short period of time that she was preparing that bath, he grabbed a toy sword and managed to unlatch 2 locks, gaining access to the backyard pool where he attempted to fill his balloon. And that's where he drowned. And it takes a split second. And it's an awful story, but locks high up. Think like a child. How can they get out? And they're creative, they're crafty, and we always have to stay on top. 4-sided pool fencing, that's an extra layer. Yes, Leanne?
They're also very determined.
Oh, they are.
Know they want yes. And if there is a will, there's a way. So it's just to be creative and get down to their level. I've learned with a toddler, you need to get down to their level and see their danger. And it's very, very eye-opening as a new parent when you start looking around saying, oh yeah, they might not be safe. Oh, that might not be safe. And I feel like the more proactive you are, the less you'll run into issues with every kind of safety for children. I mean, I've worked in an emergency department for 15 years. Kids get into everything. And it's not because of lack of parenting or supervision or blaming anybody. They are creative, they are fast, and they are determined.
You never forget either. When they want something, they're like, nope, I'm having this. I'm not forgetting.
And they'll remember several days later what it is that they wanted too. If we talked and alluded to technology, life jackets are basic technology. It's something that's been around for a long time. They keep getting better, and they keep getting lighter and thinner too. So there's all kinds of options that are out there. One of the things I will mention is that there are inflatable life jackets available, and anything inflatable, especially with children, you want to be very careful. So water wings are, and I'm just going to say it, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. Water wings on a child, if they're jumping in the water and their arms go up, guess what flies off first? The water wings, and the child sinks. Anything that is inflatable that the child is on can receive a puncture. The inflatables that were around 20 years ago have even changed to now. These are disposable pieces, and so they are not up to the constant wear and tear that we give them. Young children will want to jump on things. They may even have it down on the pool deck or even on the beach, and it just takes a nick of a rock or a piece of sand or something that gets into it, and then it can be, they can be in big trouble. We've even seen several stories in the media, you can look these up, where children have been on inflatables and they have floated out. One, in fact, floated out, and fishermen ended up rescuing her. So this is how far out this can happen in terms of currents, in terms of wind, any changing condition. And so, yeah, just stay away from inflatables. Cameras, alarms, we alluded to those. Lots more research to be done there, but wow, we're really advancing as a society. And so we have the basics of technology in terms of life jackets, and we of course can go all the way to the other end of that spectrum with artificial intelligence and everything in between. So it's an exciting time. From a coalition perspective, we want evidence-based pieces, and we want to engage the technology sector to really take a look at drowning prevention and all the neat things that we can do, because it is fascinating. And of course, I alluded earlier to CPR training, first aid training. It is one of the simplest things that you can do and keep up on, and it's something that we should all have. One of the recommendations put out by the coalition is that each individual with a license, a driver's license, if you're applying for the first time or you're renewing your license, that at that point in time, you should have certified CPR training. So, whether or not that includes AED will be up to the provider. But imagine if we're coming up on an accident or something, or we're in a position or situation, certainly not planned, but we can help. How many more lives can be saved, be it water or on land? So we're just going to switch to this last slide that we have, which is the whole message here is limiting access to water to keep your child safe. And so there's some pictures here that we have. The first one within arm's reach. And so again, they wiggle and they squiggle when they're in the water. And you may have more than one child with you. I think from a safety perspective, and if you're going to a local pool, you'll want to check the facility's rules, because sometimes you're only allowed to have a maximum of 2 children with you if they're both under a certain age. Because let's face it, we only have 2 arms. And trying to balance kids and our own safety. And again, as a former swimming instructor, when I used to teach, there'd be 4 4-year-olds in the class. And when you're coming into or around that drop off in the pool to teach them, because they do have to have some exposure to deep water and they think it's funny, it takes one to think it's funny to climb on top of the instructor, and everybody else wants to follow. I've seen that where I've had to go in and actually rescue other instructors over time. And so that's why over the years, you'll see instructors always have an aid with them. I alluded to that earlier too, if you're at the beach with your child. So they'll have a pool noodle with them. They'll be wearing a PFD, and they'll have something with them that can help keep them buoyant when they're with these kids, because anything can happen. And kids are extremely strong in the water. Anyone is, especially if they're fearful, and it becomes very dangerous. So be mindful and be very careful if you do have to rescue your child or someone else's, if you're in a pool or in another situation. So within arm's reach, you have 2 arms, 2 kids. If you need extra help, find that extra help. Plus, it makes it much more fun. You've just expanded your group. You've expanded your bubble, being in COVID terms. Fitted life jackets, we ran through how to do that. There's some videos online. There's lots of information online. If you access Life Saving Society websites here in New Brunswick, Life Saving Society New Brunswick has all kinds of information on there. You can also access water safety tip cards to lifeguarddepot.com. We have one of our groups looks at this, and it's in many different languages, actually. So if you're looking or working with other groups, or you have a parent group or a play group that you attend and you want to share information, these safety tip cards are available in 12 different languages. It's absolutely amazing. And so this is where these pictures come from. Vigilance, you'll see that picture, watch me, not your phone. Technology is great, but it really takes up a lot of our time, and it doesn't take much time at all. There was actually, for the first time, a mother actually was found guilty of negligence in the court of law in Ontario. She had stepped away from the bathtub where her toddler had drowned, fatally drowned. She said she had only been on Facebook for a moment. A message had come in, and we found it after, of course, and you can read the proceedings. I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, she had been on for 12 minutes. And so we lose track of time when we're engaging in social media. We want to engage in life. We want to be with our kids. And so turn off the phones, turn off the other messages, put down the books. If you're still reading paper books, put them on down and just be with your kids. Water can turn something fun into a tragedy almost instantly. That last slide, lock it up and limit access. So we talked about baby gates in the house as a one block to get to that bathroom. It could be a lock that's on your toilet. You could have any number of things happening. Of course, if you have four-sided pool fencing outside your house for your backyard pool, in addition to your patio door locks and one that's up high, a deadbolt or even a locked key, kids are creative, and if they want out, they will find a way. So lock it up and limit access. And of course, CPR training. And we hope and we pray that you will not need it. But should you need it, there'll be never a greater gift that you've ever given yourself than that gift. And you will certainly not regret it in terms of providing that care initially until EMS can arrive on scene. It makes a very big difference. So again, download your free copy of the Canadian Drowning Prevention Plan at cdpccoalition.ca. You can backslash on publications there as well. The 6th edition, which came out in May, is there now. We have the 7th edition coming out late next week. It's available in both English and in French. We produce these every 6 months, so there is an update. They're constantly updated. Sometimes you'll find the technical working groups, all of them will be updated. Sometimes it's just a few because there's ongoing projects. We're constantly improving and growing and sharing information. And so if there's anything you want to learn, reach out anytime. And I don't have my, well, actually, I guess my email address is down here and it's all messed up at the bottom of the screen. It should be info@cdpcoalition.ca, and my phone number there is there as well for the office, so you can reach me directly at extension 25. Feel free to reach out. I'm certainly more than happy to help out. And one more plug, Lara. One thing that we do not have here in Fredericton, which by the way, and I'm located here in Fredericton for all of those who are listening and tuning in from Fredericton, it's very rare that we have someone else or a stakeholder located here. I'm going to try to turn on my camera, but it's not launching properly. That's fine. So be it. Of course, it doesn't. It wants to mess up now, right? In any event, we need to start a Fredericton Drowning Prevention Coalition. We have the beautiful Willistuck River. We have all kinds of access, amazing walking trails. We have bridges. We have all kinds of water around us in this beautiful province. And we could start right here with Fredericton. And so if you're interested, we do what's called a multi-sectoral coalition. We engage government. We engage civic foundations. So it could be, as I said, parents who may have lost children, or someone who is doing something in memory of someone else who has unfortunately drowned. We have room for media, industry, NGOs, so non-governmental organizations, and of course academics. So we bring everybody to the table, and everyone offers a different perspective, and from there we learn and we grow.
This is wonderful, and I totally agree with you. Fredericton could 100% use something like this. There's absolutely no reason why we can't spread the message. I mean, how many people do you know that have pools in their backyard, or go to the stream in the back of their house and play, or have a toilet in their house with a kid? So yeah, I mean, it really is actually that easy. We had a question come in, and I think it's a really good point. Should toilets be locked and bathroom doors all of the time, or how should you kind of play with that? Would one of you guys want to talk about that a bit?
So I can maybe answer because I have a toddler at home. I mean, the locking of the toilets, I don't think is necessary. I think if you have a young child, the ones that will drown in toilets are the ones who are very top heavy. So children that have very large heads, which I'm thinking you're like 2 and unders. So they're just starting to get mobile. They're kind of not steady on their feet yet, and they're kind of top heavy. So what'll happen is they'll go to play in the toilet, and then whoop, they fall and they kind of go head first. So I think the safest way is to keep the door of the washroom closed, and potentially have like one of those like safety locks or whatnot, not lock, but you know how like they have those mechanisms that you kind of have to squeeze and turn, or there's also these different contraptions. I feel like that is probably your safest. And then if they are playing in the washroom, you need to be by their side. And so I feel like when you start teaching them young, if you go to the washroom, mom has to be with you. If you go to the washroom, mom has to be with you. And then it works great for potty training too. So I feel like that's probably your safest bet. I mean, I'm sure there's contraptions out there that exist for toilets, and you have to go with how mobile your child is and how curious they are. And so if you feel that you need to lock that toilet because your child will go and play in that toilet, then do what you feel is safest. But I feel like for myself, just keeping that washroom door closed so that you limit that access and they're not able to open that door is usually safe. Once they get to a cognitive age where they're able to understand that the toilet is to pee on and stuff like that, they usually will play less in the toilet. They'll play that game of dropping things in the toilet, but they won't be going for the water. I don't know if you want to add anything, Lisa.
No, I think those are really good tips and tricks, Leanne. Thank you. Any other questions for us, Lara?
There was. So people know that you can drown in what's the famous thing? You can drown in an inch of water, but why and how does that actually happen? And what is it that causes there to be such, like, it's a commonplace thing that people know, right? But it's not something that is really talked about. You hear like, well, you can drown in an inch of water in the bathtub, but kind of what is the reasoning behind that a little bit, and do you mind talking about that when it comes to kids? Because I mean, it's so easy. It's just so easy to sit there and you can actually see them, but I don't want to use the word dry drowning. It's not.
So it's
what commonly people understand and know about, right? So.
Right. There's been lots of changes in terminology, but basically, and it doesn't necessarily have to be water. It could be any liquid that you're aspirating on, which means you've breathed it in. It's gotten into your lungs. And so I worked with, I was actually teaching a first aid course a few years ago, and one of my participants had a non-fatal drowning incident. So drowning incidents or drowning events or they're non-fatal, meaning either you have died, the person has died, or they have not. And when we're talking about non-fatal, it can be anything from they don't even realize something's happened, they've just been spooked or scared, and they have survived, all the way to permanent brain damage. And so we're talking a really broad spectrum, okay, when we're talking non-fatal. But when you have that when you have that liquid, any number of things can happen. And so if that individual has, even if they've passed out and there's vomit present, they can drown by aspirating, by breathing in that liquid. Our lungs are not meant to breathe in liquid. They're simply not. And so, no, they're not after birth. Yeah, once we're out in the big wide world, then we need air. And so that's, without getting into a physiological explanation, that's basically what it is. They have breathed this in. It doesn't take very much. And if you're face down in it, and there's no other option, because if you're a top or a head heavy toddler and you're down into a puddle, or we have seen toddlers just fall face down into a beachfront, into shallow water, and you don't really think much of it, but there they are. That can happen. In terms of drowning after, there's been all kinds of different terminology used. So there, for a long time, secondary drowning or after drowning or dry drowning, or basically it's alluding to something happening at a given moment in time where they have aspirated and something is still in their lungs. Okay, so liquid or water, something's still there. And so often if I'm pulling someone out as a lifeguard, especially a young child, and I sit them on the side of the pool and I look at them and say, take a big breath in. And kids will imitate, right? And so they take that big breath in, and the next thing we know, they start to cough, or they start, there's a reaction. And that's one of our indicators, okay? And we don't want everyone rushing out, because let's face it, kids are in the pool and they're jumping around, they're doing all kinds of things, and they're breathing heavy. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're aspirating on the water. But if you have developed, if the child develops flu-like symptoms or a cough or something like that, and you've seen something happen earlier, or you're curious about what's happening there, and you have a genuine concern, then have it checked out, because things can quite literally fester.
I mean, Leanne, you must see it too. And having worked in Emerge, that's one of the things that if there was going to be something, it wasn't necessarily someone coming in, or especially children coming in because they had been fully submerged underwater. It was usually the residual fluid that was kind of in their lungs that was causing the issues and the inflammation and all of the issues breathing after.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're ever in a situation where you feel your child has maybe aspirated a bit of, is just to watch for signs and symptoms.
Yeah.
Cough, congestion that wasn't there before. They will show you difficulty breathing. They will have more labored breathing. They'll use accessory muscles, so they'll pull within their rib cage, pull. And if you do see those things, bring them in and have them seen. But most kids, when they are playing in the water and stuff like that, sometimes, stuff goes down the wrong hole and it's cough, 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 and then they're otherwise well. It's just a period of observation to say, okay, could they have aspirated, yes or no? And then look for signs and symptoms. And if you're not sure, have them seen. Like it's something that as parents, I think we all hear these stories about all sorts of things on the internet. And this is where I feel social media and kind of can get to us, is you don't get the full story in some of these articles. And so I think it's just really to educate yourself on, that's it, the physiology and what is a dry, what they were calling the dry drownings. And it's basically fluid that got into the lungs. And then the child usually develops difficulty breathing, cough, stuff like that in the aftermath, not usually within the first couple of hours, but you just watch them and you wait and you see. And if you feel that they are having trouble breathing, absolutely, you have them seen.
The best part is too, I mean, nobody in Emerge is ever, ever, ever going to fault you for wanting to make sure that your child's okay.
No, and most of the nurses, I feel, from triage will assess the child and give you an honest opinion. They will verify their respiratory rate. They will check their lungs. They will tell you their oxygen saturation. So just be very forthcoming with what your concerns are, and they're able to feed that information back to you and have you seen appropriately. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I know. I mean, just from my experience and stuff, there's never ever been a time where somebody has brought their child in and says, I know that they're sick. And then as the triage nurse, you don't say, no, I'm not so sure. It's like, you know your child, you know whether or not they're okay, and you do have to trust that gut instinct. So don't be embarrassed. That's not something to ever be embarrassed about, is asking for help to make sure that somebody's okay. And you're not going to be faulted if baby fell down face first into a bathtub, you know? So it's not your fault by any stretch. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
This has been so amazing, Leanne and Lisa. I cannot thank you enough for this awesome presentation. I know that there's a little bit in the works, so we might be able to do something again. But I think that this conversation is something that needs to happen in so much more of kind of a commonplace setting, because they're just not enough about it. And when something does happen that was preventable, or was, even just you hear about it, you feel the pain of that parent, of that person who has now or is no longer here because of something that could have been potentially avoided. And it does feel so much. And I know that a lot of issue with society is just being busy. Things are moving really fast, and there's not always the time, or I guess really the emphasis put on the safety part of it, and getting into that routine of, Leanne, just exactly like you were saying, past that point at the cottage, doesn't matter, no excuses, this is where the life jackets go on. And having something like that, as much as it may feel like overkill, it's not. It's really, really not. And I know there's also kind of a generational thing in there as well. There's a lot of, well, my kids grew up with this cottage and nothing ever happened to us. Why would it happen to my grandkids, type of thing? But it takes one person, so it really is a matter of, as parents, you want to do everything in the entire world. Like, our car seats have gotten about 1,000,000 times better, and at least we have them now. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. The world is improving when it comes to safety, and there's a reason for it. We love our kids, we want to take care of them. And so implementing just a few, or all of, if you can, the strategies that you guys talked about tonight is just some little steps that you can really do that will make a huge, huge difference. So thank you both so much for doing this.
Thanks for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having us, Lara, and count us in for any future conversations, and hopefully my video will work better next time.
We will make sure of it, and I really look forward to it, especially talking maybe this winter about safety on ice and open water when skating. So that would
Absolutely.
be a good one. All right, if you have any questions at all, and if you have stayed to the end for this, thank you for being here. But if you do have any questions, feel free to either message me and I can send you along the information to get a hold of Leanne and Lisa, or I will point you in the right direction anyway with information. So thank you again for tuning in, and thank you both for coming here tonight.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.